shouldn't be live on the chat.
Okay, Sarah, we're just checking. I think we are live.
Sometimes it takes a minute to load to the live feed.
Okay, Sarah, we are now live. We are live at Get to Know 1st District Tennessee U.S. House candidate Blair Walsingham. I'd like to welcome you to the Sevier County Democratic Party Democratic Candidate Forum. This is our second session featuring Blair, and you're a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives for District 1 in Tennessee. I'm Delynn McCash. I'm a member of the Jefferson County Executive Committee. And although we had to move this forum online, we wanted to be as interactive as possible. So we are asking everyone who's watching to contribute their questions. We have an executive committee members that are monitoring the comments in the live stream to pass your questions on to Blair to answer in real time. Blair will introduce herself, and then she will answer your live questions that some that the party received by email in advance. We have dropped Blair's website and Facebook page in the comments so that you can follow up with her if you want to get involved with her campaign. So let's get started. Blair, please take a minute and introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hi, Delynn. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Blair Walsingham. I live out in Hawkins County. And again, I am running for Tennessee's 1st congressional seat. And I'm a mother of 4, a U.S. veteran, a small business owner. I have a homestead. We have some sheep, and we're growing some produce for everybody out here, trying to at least get started. And I'm just happy to be here today to talk to you guys a little bit about what I care about and what I want to do for everybody here in East Tennessee.
Well, Blair, I am thrilled to have an opportunity to interview a fellow veteran. That's a really nice thing. To have 2 women veterans in one area isn't all that common, so it makes me happy. Let's start with our question and answer session. Our first question is from Joe B., and it's really a 3-part question. So I'll ask you one question at a time. So Joe B.'s first question is, are you an anti-voucher candidate?
Easy answer, yes. I'm anti-vouchers. It hurts our most vulnerable students more than it helps anyone.
Thank you so much. How about pro-living wage? Are you a pro-living wage candidate?
Absolutely. And it's not even just for paid work. People should have a basic level of decency for non-paid work. You're talking about stay-at-home mothers and fathers, caretakers of the elderly, volunteer EMTs. There's a lot of work that goes undervalued, let alone people who are working for wages that they can barely get by on. We absolutely need better wages.
Wonderful. Okay. And are you pro-mandatory vaccinations?
I am not for pro-mandatory anything. People need choices, and this is the land of the free. And when you run into a lot of the problems we're seeing now, there is a heavy tension and people are acting out of fear. So we need to address those fears and make sure that people understand what is happening and what's available to them. And we can't force things. That's a very slippery slope of taking away people's bodily autonomies.
Okay, well, thank you, Joe B. Those came from him. So we have another question from Sarah Jessel, if I can find it. S.J. Jessel. This says, several Republican candidates for the congressional seat, as well as the Senate seat, have begun to use television advertising to present their ideas and their platforms to area voters. Have you seen any of these ads? And if so, is there an ad or a claim that lowers the bar of fair discourse? In short, what claim or assertion, if any, rankles you?
That's a really interesting question. And to be honest, if it's not on social media, I pretty much don't see it. We have satellite internet that is very spotty. It barely works. We don't have cable TV. I don't watch traditional news stations. So if it's not in the local paper, which obviously a commercial is not going to be in there, I probably haven't seen it. So I can't properly answer that question because I haven't seen any of the other candidates' actual commercials, only some of their advertisements on social media.
Okay. Thank you. Here's some open forum questions that were prepared somewhat in advance, but you have not had access to these at all. What question do you think is most important to ask a candidate who's running for office?
This is a really interesting question that nobody has asked. So I would say this is a good question, actually. It's a lot of people get caught up in what we call like the wedge issues, the ones that are low-hanging fruit, that are easy for people to battle on and say, well, I think this and I think that. And what we're really missing is all of the small issues that get left behind that people are dealing with on their average everyday lives, like the landslides that are happening out here, or the lack of food that people have out here in the rural areas, lack of internet falls down on the list. We really have to consider what is affecting people day-to-day lives, the little issues. What can I actually do for you? Prime example, something nobody would think about or typically ask me, why is there no basketball hoops at the basketball court in Rogersville? Aren't kids supposed to be able to use that space to be able to play basketball and have things to keep them busy and to do and to be outdoors? That's what it's there for, yet there's no hoops for them to even actually play. So it's not a traditional congressional person problem for me to go down there and put new hoops in, yet that is something on my list to do. Yeah. These are the things that as a community we should really be caring about, the little things in life.
I like that. As a representative for district, your main concern would be to support your district. So that's really good. Okay. Now here's a big one. Here's one of the wedge issues. What steps, if any, should be taken to curb gun violence in our communities?
Gun violence is a huge problem. There's no denying it whatsoever. If you look up the numbers, and I hate calling it numbers because these are lives. These are actual people losing their lives. We don't necessarily have a gun problem. We have a mental health problem. We have people who are committing suicide daily. It is a leading cause, especially of death in Tennessee. And we have a large number of firearms being stolen that are later used in crimes. So apart from getting people an actual education with the safety training, which is really important. I know people who, I'm like, hey, is that chamber cleared? And they go, what's the chamber? You shouldn't be waving a firearm around if you don't know how to clear your chamber, for starters. These are basic education. So, as a veteran, we went through training and we learned how to clean our weapon, how to take it apart, how to use it, how to handle it, and basic safety precautions. Everybody should have a basic level of safety with something that can and does take lives. That being said, I think a more important aspect of this is also going to be proper storage. We had a absolutely tragic news story just this week where a very young child got a hold of a weapon and shot themselves. It was loaded and left down. So apart from criminals stealing guns, it's also, you're losing a lot of money. Firearms aren't cheap, especially the ones that you spend a lot of money on. You don't want that to be taken from you. It needs to be locked up properly. And it's the same thing for our children. We really need to make sure they're not getting a hold of these loaded firearms anymore. And really, we can all agree nobody wants to have their children being shot or their gun being stolen. And we should really focus on those issues. So education, safety education, proper storage and handling of our firearms. And there is loopholes for violent offenders to still be able to purchase guns, and I would like to close that loophole.
Right. Those are great questions. Those are great answers. Really well thought out. So I want to follow up on this. You mentioned veterans and you mentioned suicide. Those two things are linked closely in my mind because we know that there's, 22 per day or maybe even more that are committing suicide. What answers or what ideas do you have about this subject?
This is a really, really tough subject. Mental health is one of those difficult topics that we're going to have to address. So aside from just giving people healthcare that includes mental health, there's a special niche for our veterans that are outside of the typical day-to-day life that people are going to go through. And I want to hit on something important here because a lot of people don't know. With security clearance, there is a big gap. So if you go to a mental health professional and you have a high level security clearance, the patient confidentiality does not supersede that. The security clearance supersedes patient doctor confidentiality. So you have a lot of people who can't even seek the proper mental health treatment they need because of that. So we need to not only just get mental health actually in the works and available and accessible to people of all walks, but make sure that our veterans who have these issues actually have somebody that they can talk to and be able to work through what they've seen or experienced or are suffering from. So these are some really huge struggles people are facing, and a lot of them can't even talk about it, let alone go through it and get the proper help that they need. This is a huge window, and if you look across, again, it's statistics, it's numbers, you can really see the thing that has been increasing is suicides. It's mental health, and it's a problem from our 10-year-olds to our 50-year-olds. It's a leading cause of death in Tennessee, top 3 causes of death. So this is something we have to address, and to do it quickly and make sure we destigmatize it also.
Right. That's very well thought out. Okay, I'm going back to the prepared questions. What will you do over the long term to ensure healthcare access for all? Here's a totally different subject.
This is a really broad question. There's actually so many problems wrong within our medical system. So it's not only guaranteeing people to actually have coverage, but getting accessible and good health care. If we got insurance for everybody tomorrow, it doesn't solve our local problems with rural hospitals closing. It doesn't solve our problems with co-pays being too high or prescription costs being too high. It also doesn't allow us to open more hospitals. So these are all part of my healthcare policy, not just to give everybody immediate access to healthcare, which includes mental health, dental, vision, hearing, anything that you could possibly fall under mental or health aspects. We have to really change the Medicare wage index. I believe in lowering the age for Medicare to 60. I also think that we need to get rid of the certificate of need, which is what keeps Ballad Health's monopoly open and doesn't allow other hospitals to open, and regulating the pharmaceutical companies, the pricing, and that falls under medical procedures too. If you need like implants or medical devices, those prices need to be set too. We can't be profiting off of people's medical expenses.
Okay. Let's go to a totally different topic.
Love it.
We're going to go from healthcare to immigration. Okay, take a mind to move your head in that direction. And what steps, if any, should our nation take to reform our current immigration policies, especially regarding our Dreamers and our DACA students?
This is a really in-depth question also, because what is supposed to be in place and people think is in place is not always what's actually happening either.
That's true. So
we have to take a look at what's actually happening and not what's supposed to be happening, and make a clear path to citizenship, because right now it's not obtainable. And by legal definition, it should be easily obtainable and understandable. And right now it's little to impossible. We have a ton of immigrants who come here to help out on the farms, and other people are not even willing to do those jobs. So I just kind of like to add that in, that we should definitely thank an immigrant today for the produce that's on your table, especially with COVID now happening, and a lot of the plants are experiencing a spread of COVID. Those are those people risking their lives to make sure that you have food on your table. A clear path is going to be the first solution. I do think we need to reform ICE completely. It's crimes against humanity, in my opinion, to have these families separated. As a mother of 4, I can't imagine having to be separated from my children in the way that we're doing.
Yeah. I know that my children are in a cage. I mean, oh my gosh. Yeah.
And it's the lack of supplies, the lack of care. These are little children. These are innocent people, and we as Americans should not allow that to go on. That's not the example that we want to set for the world. I am working with some people to come up with some pretty in-depth immigration reform, including some local experts, local law attorneys, and a few friends who are actually going through the DACA process. So stay tuned for more on that one.
So do you think immigration reform needs to, or one piece of immigration reform needs to be employer reform?
It does, and you run into a lot of trouble with the different visas that say supplies. We'll say, well, let them come over for this because it's really doing us a favor, but then we're going to punish them in this area and not let them bring their family to be with them and different things. There's a lot of work to be done in this area. We are a country of immigrants. It's silly to think that this isn't a country of abundance. We have enough for more than everybody, and we need to keep setting the tone for the future and how we treat people.
Thank you. Okay, how we treat people segues into our next question quite easily because it is, what kind of policies, if any, will you pursue to promote social and racial justice in our community?
That's a really
it's hard in Tennessee. That's a hard question in Tennessee these days.
It is. There's a lot of turmoil right now, and a lot of people who are very intense and upset about the issues, and some people still don't understand it. A lot of the things that people are facing, especially the members of color in our communities, have been systemically ingrained through procedure from long, long ago. And it's kind of interesting if you look at the past, because they even said, letting women vote would lead to no good, that it wasn't a problem. And it's still an issue that we're fighting today. Yeah, we can vote. We're at our 100-year anniversary of being able to vote. But these things were brought up even into the 21st century, where we still don't even, as women, make the same amount that a man makes for the same job, even if you're more qualified. So this is the same way with a lot of the issues you're seeing that affect our other communities. It's from the past, and it's been drug in to the point where we didn't even know why it was like that, but we do now. And so we have to address that. We have to make these changes and make sure that we are protecting everybody and not just one particular group. Inclusivity is never going to be wrong. Leading with love and kindness is never going to be wrong. And we need to focus on that and make sure everybody is supported and welcomed, with loving arms.
So Blair, when you talk about our history, I like to remind people that East Tennessee, believe it or not, is pretty progressive in that East Tennessee voted against joining the Confederacy. East Tennessee is where the man who voted to allow women to vote came from, this area. So we're a little bit more progressive than people like to make us out to be. And I'd like to think that we can keep that going. East Tennessee provided more Union soldiers than any other state in the South. So people need to remember where our history actually was. We on this side are a lot different than the rest of the state. What kind of policies?
Beautiful point.
What should the federal government do to provide an equitable, quality public education for all children, grades pre-K through 12?
Ooh, this one. So again, I have two young ones, 1 and 2, and then I have a 12 and 13-year-old who are in the public school systems. And there is a lot to do. It starts with getting proper funding. Right now, the current admin has repeatedly slashed funding, especially to our rural communities. If we want our kids to have a future and a decent education, then we have to put our money where our mouth is and make sure that our schools are being funded, that our teachers are being paid properly, that they have after-school activities, sports programs, arts, music. This is where it all starts. And we find a lot of people advocating for reform within the school system to move away from standardized testing and focus more on the diversity and inclusion aspect, making sure when people follow their passions, they tend to be successful. And if your passion is art or music or wood shop, whatever it may be, that should start in an early age where we allow them to explore their interest instead of trying to put everybody in the same box, which is very clearly failing miserably for many, many children. So this is, again, all these things are connected, and we need our parents to also have more time, less stress, to to be able to interact more with their kids, spend more money on their children, to be able to just do more in general with them. We put way too much pressure on our teachers to raise our kids, to feed them at school, to have the mental health recess, to do all these things while a lot of parents are working 1 or 2 jobs. I personally understand that myself. I worked a full-time job and a part-time job. My husband also worked full-time, and staying up late at night to help your kid finish the project can be difficult when you're living paycheck to paycheck and really struggling. So we need to get the proper funding. I think we do need to reform the way we're handling education, allowing our kids to be more diverse and explore what works for them. We need to make sure our parents are happy and able to be the best parents that they can possibly be. And it all kind of comes down to funding, because you can't do any of that without the proper funding.
Absolutely. Okay, Sarah, can you, Blair, I'm sorry, can you explain why the lack of internet is so detrimental? And what will you do to make internet more accessible in rural areas of Tennessee? That came from Sarah.
That's really the question, the $1 million question.
Right.
So even Trump has signed the internet expansion bill and pushed for that. But there's little to no accountability for the companies to actually come install the rural internet, because it's not cost effective to them. They say, well, am I going to get paid? Am I going to get a bunch of money in my pockets to give you guys internet? And to them, they say, well, it's just not enough people, and the expansion doesn't happen. So let me start by saying how important it really is. It's not about just watching Netflix or having internet. This is about kids being able to continue education, especially with like COVID shutdowns. A lot of children had zero access, let alone own a computer or a smartphone or a tablet. It's education for our older children and our adults who are doing online schooling. It's at-home work, which would help a ton of people who got let go from jobs that couldn't go in the first place. And when you're talking about rural, it's so much traveling. It would be fantastic if some of these people didn't have to drive 30 minutes, an hour. My husband drives almost 2 hours to a job, though he couldn't do his remote, but many people could if they had reliable internet access. And then you have to talk about healthcare here too. Telemedicine is very real and very available now if you have internet. I know some people who were trying to drive their kids to the school to sit outside in a hot parking lot with no AC so they could try to connect to the Wi-Fi just to do some work.
Right.
Should never be happening. We need internet. It is a basic utility, and it should be treated as such. And I will absolutely legislate for that and make sure we have accountability to get it done, not just companies pocketing the money and then not finishing the expansion.
Thank you. I love to see your passion. We have time for just one more question, I think. So this is from Barbara, and she wants to know, where do you stand on protecting our environment, rivers, mountains, and air?
I love this question. So I studied environmental science at Pensacola State College in Florida, and that is where my passion definitely grew from. I say we only have one Earth, and we need to vote like it depends on us, because it really does. And as Tennesseans, we're very proud. It is beautiful. It's a phenomenal place to live, and we need to protect that. What are we willing to give up to let companies come in and own this and mine away everything and poison our waterways? I, for one, am not willing to give up that for any reason or any amount of money, and I don't think regular Tennesseans are either. These are our waterways, our sources, our beautiful mountains to raise our families on. We absolutely have to protect that. We need to move into more green energy, and that's a very broad term. Solar panels are fantastic, but they come at a cost too, and people are working towards that to make it better, more effective, more sustainable. We can take different farming initiatives, such as growing hemp is actually great for the environment, move out of using plastic. Everything that is made out of plastic can be made from hemp. So we could eliminate single-use plastic altogether, and you could still have the same products you know and love today. There's just so much we could do. I am a member of Sierra Club, and they do a lot of great work locally and nationally to protect the environment. And I would encourage you guys to actually come join us and work towards keeping Tennessee beautiful and clean.
Okay, we are almost out of time. I would ask you to take just the last few minutes to wind down your closing, say anything that you'd like to say in closing, and give us your final thoughts.
Thanks, Delenn. You're actually a great moderator. I love your transitions into the questions.
Thank you.
Keeps it
This is my
interesting.
first time ever doing this, so thank you.
Oh, well, you're doing great. Yeah, so I would really just encourage you guys to take a good look around. Tennessee has a reputation of making the same choices over and over and over, 100+ years, and things are not better. They're not better for our businesses. They're not better for our families. Everything is going downhill steadily. If you want to be financially secure, health care for your family, a good education with jobs in the future, you need to look at candidates like myself who are out here working with you, living with you, and experiencing the same things instead of being detached and living in a nice fancy house where they think you can live off $13 a day. I, for one, cannot, especially with a family of 6. The reality is we need help, and we need to make choices that are really going to benefit all of the Tennesseans and not just the 1% at the top. And I would love to see Tennessee be the best it can be and to truly thrive and have everybody represented and really just doing well instead of the poverty I see just crippling everybody. I know too many people without running water or electricity, let alone good internet. And this really simply should not be. We can have a better future here. We can make this possible. All it takes is for you to vote accordingly. So I would urge you all to do that. Please, I have an open door at blairforcongress.com. My social media is all on there, and I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Thank you very much, Blair. I wish you the best of luck on your campaign and everything else going forward. And from one veteran to another, Godspeed.
Thanks, Delenn. See you guys later. Thanks for having me on.
To everybody else, thank you for joining us for the Sevier County Democratic Party's Democratic Candidate Forum, our last session featuring U.S. Senate candidates Marquita Bradshaw, Robin Kimbrough Hayes, James Mackler, and Mark Pickrell will begin in about 15 minutes at 3:30 p.m. Thank you.